Hello everybody, welcome back to Demi's Bot Shots, and the first Demi's Bot Shots back since we started the Cybertron Archive. I'm mainly going to be focusing on the Cybertron Archive, but there's just been too much cool stuff happening recently for me to not talk about some of the other stuff, including Studio Series' first foray into the Commander class size range with 86 Ultra Magnus. Now, I personally really love the Kingdom figure, especially for its inner robot gimmick, so I was originally not super sold on the idea of a Magnus that didn't have the inner robot, but I decided I'd give the 86 one a fair shot, especially considering it's kind of historic, being the first Studio Series Commander, and if it does well, there's a chance I might be able to get Stratosphere in the Studio Series, which I would love, but that's me going into my own little tirades. Let's talk about this figure. And before we really jump into the figure itself, I just want to give a nice, awesome highlight to this backdrop. I don't usually talk about the Studio Series backdrops all that much, but I wanted to give this one a shout out because not only is it nice, really big size, it's got a lovely artwork on it showing the Battle of Autobot City and Magnus himself having a really fun time there. I'm really glad they decided to pick Battle of Autobot City and not something a little bit more relevant to the figure, like, say, the Battle on Junk, but I'm so happy that they didn't go with the Battle of Junk. Whatever the case, Magnus himself comes packaged in robot mode, and so we'll start there. Magnus is a giant lad, especially compared to his fellow Studio Series 86 friends. And while I was originally hearing so much about him being really wide, in hand, he's just the perfect amount of bulk. He is hefty, he is large, he's honestly like the size of a Cybertron Voyager, but, I mean, Cybertron Voyagers were big compared to what we get nowadays, so I'll take it. In terms of posability, he's got everything I would hope to have out of a figure like this. He's got nice, hefty ratchets at his shoulders. He's got awesome posability in the legs. And in fact, he also has, if you untab a couple of places, some joints that we don't normally get to see anymore, like butterfly joints. So he can do poses that require him to bend his arms in. In terms of accessories to go with this lad, we do have quite a few. Technically, his earpieces are seen as accessories. In the box, they are removed and stored with the accessories, probably to avoid damaging them on the way. I'm not going to count those, though. In terms of everything else, we do get two awesome-looking blasters. We get this sort of smaller-looking blaster, and we also get a much larger blaster that I believe is more accurate to the toy, which is really fun to see. We also get some blast effect parts, which I believe are recast from Omega Supreme's blast effect parts. This time, the larger pieces all have this lovely gray dusting on them, painting on the outside to sort of replicate the look of blasts from the 86 cartoon, which is awesome to see. And we also, as part of Magnus's special gimmicks, get a Matrix of Leadership in his own opening chest cavity, which is so fun to see. I love the spring-loaded windows on that, and that you just have to untab the top section, and they release themselves. That is amazing sculpted detail on the inside, and the matrix is fully removable, and we get the same matrix that we've been getting in basically everything that's come with a matrix in the past 5 years. 5 years? I think the first time we got that Matrix mold was Earthrise Prime, so 4, getting close to 5 years now. But the Matrix still looks just as lovely as ever. And of course, if you already have Studio Series Hot Rod, Rodimus Prime, Optimus Prime, any of the figures it's come with, you're going to have this already. But adding it to the Matrix pile ain't too bad a thing. In terms of other special posability that we get on Magnus that we weren't expecting to see, we do have the opening fingers that we don't normally get to see on Commander class figures. And instead of going with the Jetfire style of flipping out a port, we just have sort of a sculpted port in the hand that the fingers can open up from and wrap around. I think that's a really nice gimmick. Personally, I wasn't the biggest fan of the fold-out port. I just thought it always looked a little silly. But comparatively, this is really nice and solid. I do love to see it. And of course, his pointer finger is individually posable compared to the other three, so you can get Magnus to point. Well, somewhat. Doesn't seem to want to go all the way out, but it's a decent enough point. And he can also hold the Matrix of Leadership himself, though, as we all know, that doesn't exactly go well for Magnus. Magnus here in robot mode does also have one other gimmick, taken from the scene where he gets blown apart by, I believe, Galvatron, or it might have been the Armada. I can't remember exactly who did it in the movie. All 4 of the arms and legs of Magnus can be removed. They all have special slide-off sections that are locked in place really solidly. These are not coming off unless you want them to come off. Like, first time out of the box, I honestly took the mushroom peg off of the leg before I got the leg to come off. These are super solid, not going anywhere unless you explicitly want them to. Unlike Studio Series Cup, where he will just fall to bits. And we're left with funny little Magnus torso and a gaggle of various leg parts, which you can enact the Junkions, putting him back together with Wreck-Gar and Junk Heap, and I think we're getting Scrap Heap potentially next year? Who knows? Fingers crossed. More Junkions is always good. But whatever the case, Magnus himself is super solid, super dependable as a figure, as you'd hope to get out of the almost Autobot leader. And while I am sad to see no potential for an inner robot, I am very glad that they didn't compromise anything on the bigger robot in service of trying to squeeze that in. Instead of trying to add too many gimmicks, they made sure they had a nice solid figure and then added a couple of show-specific gimmicks rather than adding on toy-specific gimmicks, unlike the Kingdom version, which I definitely enjoy them both for their own distinct reasons. But Studio Series Magnus here, definitely a chunky boy. And of course, the transformation is absolutely phenomenal. And you don't even have to take off the cab to do it. You can, but you don't have to. So let's get into that transformation, why don't we? And here we have the, what are these things called? Car carriers? Yeah, we have the car carrier mode for Ultra Magnus. Now, this is absolutely amazing to see just how much he opens up and creates the car carrier alt mode that we expected. I personally, the first time I got it transformed, did not realize how much the bot mode just kind of fades away into the car carrier mode. There's several moments of ingenuity that I just love in the design. Namely, there's double hinges on the back tires so that they can actually be folded up and out of the way for the robot mode feet, but then fold back down and lock in place to allow for rolling on the car carrier mode. The cab robot, well, the cab, is detachable from the car carrier, and while not necessarily as cool as the Earthrise Prime mold, definitely sharing a lot of the detailing and looking absolutely stunning in this sort of all white with red bumper and the red background. Originally, I was a little unsure about seeing Magnus's head just stuck on the bottom, but after realizing that it actually does kind of lock into place in a very specific way, I don't usually look at instructions, I just kind of figure stuff out. It's absolutely phenomenal to see, and I do enjoy how much it does get out of the way to allow for rolling, at least on smooth surfaces. I'd hesitate to put it on anything bumpy. And also the fact that the the fact that the cab can hook in further up compared to down for the robot mode allows it to have a bit of a hinge to it, though it does naturally sort of lock in the facing center position. So those that are just wanting to display in vehicle mode don't have to worry too much about angling if they don't want to. And of course, being that it is Magnus, you can fit several deluxe figures onto the why do I keep trying to call it a tractor trailer? You can fit several deluxes onto the car carrier alt mode. These shin plates do fold down to sort of give a ramp, and while it doesn't quite get the same angle that the original did, you can sort of angle his arms to give the illusion of that top ramp coming down, so a bot can slide up. Two bots slide up, it comes back into place, you lock it in, put a couple more on. It is absolutely stunning to see. And of course, while it's mainly designed for deluxes, reasonably you can fit some of the larger ones on top if you really tried. I'm not going to, because I'm not a lunatic, at least not technically. But plenty of playability in this cab mode, and it holds together really solidly when you're not fiddling with it. I will say the one thing that's kind of annoying is, as you may have seen as I was messing with it, showing it off, the arms do not like to stay tabbed together if you try to move them, unless you are very particular about the shoulders. The shoulders have really solid ratchets, but that also means that if you're just putting pressure on one, the other one is not going to move with it. Likewise, there's just little moments throughout all of the figure where something will not want to move, which is great when you're trying to pose, but when you're just kind of handling the figure, it can sometimes be a little awkward and a little obnoxious. I'm not going to complain though, because I will take a solid figure I have to work at over a figure that just flops onto the ground as soon as I take my hands off it. Magnus here is an absolute joy to mess with. I love everything about him in terms of the shape and design, and while Kingdom Magnus still is a favorite of mine in terms of being the inner robot with the armor, I definitely do enjoy the fact that we have a nice, solid robot Magnus that doesn't compromise anything in service of that original design that we saw in the 86 movie. He's going to look really great alongside all of your Studio Series 86 figures. He's going to be fantastic if you want to set up a little Magnus versus Galvatron setup if you're a fan of the Marvel Comics. There's just a whole bunch that this Magnus can do that the Kingdom one just looks a little bit weird in comparison. It's definitely an amazing upgrade to the Kingdom version, and a welcome change of pace for Studio Series in starting to look at some of the bigger bots from throughout. We've gotten a larger Studio Series release with the Devastator gift set, but I'm hoping that the success of Magnus, because I hope you guys are checking him out, I'm hoping that the success of Magnus means they'll start to look at other big bots from the Studio Series potential. And while I'm betting that we'll probably see a Gamer Edition before anything else, I'd love to get the chance to see somebody like Rise of the Beast Stratosphere get a larger figure in the Studio Series line. So if you're somehow watching this, Hasbro execs, Studio Series Titan Stratosphere, please, I will literally drop down on the floor and cry. And that is a positive thing. In any case, Studio Series 86 Magnus has been absolutely glorious. I'm loving every moment that I have to sort of fiddle with him and get to explore new things. And I hope that you guys seriously will check him out. I don't really have any partnerships anywhere to shove you anywhere in particular, but I do encourage you to pick up the figure if and when you can. And I really hope that we get to see more big bots in Studio Series from this. Whatever the case, I hope you guys have a really wonderful rest of your day. And, well, I just kind of said my usual catchphrase, didn't I? Whatever the case, have a great rest of your day, everybody. Bye!